welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Turn the Page. I'm your host today, Jen, and today I am joined by the author of an absolutely delicious rom-com. It's so much fun, yet it's also very touching and very serious in some ways and touches on some very serious, interesting issues, and I am just so excited to talk about it. So welcome to the show. Could I ask you to introduce yourself and your book, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Myah Ariel. I am the author of my second romance novel, No Ordinary Love, which is the story of an R&B pop superstar, Ella Simone, who is in the midst of a contentious divorce with her music mogul record producer, soon-to-be ex-husband, Elliot Majors. And while her high-powered divorce lawyer is trying to get her out of this ironclad prenup and record deal contract, she tells her, no scandals, no headlines. We have to lay low. But of course, all things don't go to plan. And at the Grammys backstage, Ella is embroiled in this snafu that hits the headlines with none other than baseball's most eligible player, Miles Westbrook, who is the head pitcher for the LA Dodgers. And Miles has just gone through his tumultuous divorce as well. He's in headlines and he's suffered heartbreak as well. And so Miles and Ella are thrust in the spotlight, and their PR teams are trying to make the best of this very messy situation. And of course, in the midst of all that drama, they really find a way to cling to each other and try to answer the question, can they find love after heartbreak?
Their relationship is so sweet and it is so uplifting, and it is balanced with this really affecting and touching look at the predatory relationship that Ella had before she meets not Miles. Before we get too much into No Ordinary Love, I'd love if we could talk a little bit about your journey as a writer and your first book.
Yeah, absolutely. My debut came out in April of 2024. When I Think of You, which is another contemporary romance novel. And I really love telling stories of women, particularly Black women, who are struggling to kind of find their way, their voices, and assert their own identities in these sometimes exploitative, sometimes toxic entertainment industries. And so When I Think of You is the story of Kalia Wilson, who is an aspiring film producer. And it's sort of in a way, it's sort of a dual timeline because we go back and forth between her time in film school in New York, and she falls in love in film school in New York City. And she falls in love with Danny, who is from the other side of the tracks. Kalia is this girl from the South who had this passion for filmmaking. She went off to New York City and she met this Nepo baby, Danny Prescott, who is the son of a famous film director who's won Oscars and has directed all of these classics. And Danny is in film school also for his passion, but he also kind of has his foot in the door. And they have this love for film, but this passion for each other, but it burns fast and bright and it crashes. And then 7 years later, Kalia is really paying her dues, working as a receptionist on a studio lot in Hollywood. She's getting doors slammed in her face, trying to work her way up the ladder. And in walks Danny Prescott, who has had all the doors open for him. His career is taking off, and it's 7 years after their breakup, and he invites her to work on his next big film project. And she doesn't want her heart to be broken again because she knows what happened last time, but she also has never had an opportunity like this before. And so that book is really exploring how can she trust herself, how can she trust him, all in the midst of this industry. Again, it's sort of like the through line between these two books, this industry that can be so exploitative of your dreams, and how can she really stay true to herself in that process as well.
Yeah, I am really interested in the elements that the book shares, like about, as you said, Black women in these sort of high stakes careers in the entertainment industry. And I know that is that informed at all by your own experience? Because you've worked in the film industry as well.
Yeah, I mean, particularly with my debut, When I Think of You. So I I was very much Kalia. I am from the South. I'm from Arkansas. Fell in love with movies as a child, knew I wanted to work in film. I went to film school in New York City. I went to NYU Tisch. And even in the book, I allude to like, I'm going to go to New York and be the Black Carrie Bradshaw. I'm going to fall in love. I'm going to find my career and my passion. And so that book really stemmed from my experience of going to New York, studying film, moving to LA, and just knowing that this world was going to open up to me. And before I knew it, I was going to do all the things that you needed to do to be on your way to becoming a film executive. And that didn't happen for me. I very much like Kalia, years later, I was still making coffee and still printing copies and still being asked to like check the mouse traps, behind the vending machines. And even, no matter how many scripts I read or how many premieres I assisted or screenings I went to, I was still being told I was too green. And so, but at the same time, being on that really floor level mailroom, I literally, my desk was in the mailroom. I was able to be a sponge and really soak up all of the ways that this industry ticks. And so I was able to use a lot of that insight to inform not only the character, but a lot of the kind of like current events of, things that make the books feel current and authentic to even things that we're seeing in headlines that happen as the books are coming out. So, yeah.
Cool. What guided the choice towards a shift towards the music industry? Because this one is set in the pop music world.
Yeah, so with No Ordinary Love, I grew up loving music. Being a child of the 90s, I was born in the 89, so growing up through the 90s also, and I grew up in a multi-generational household. So I not only was my mom listening to Shaka Khan and Patti LaBelle, but my grandfather and grandmother had this record player, were always playing music all of the time. So I kind of have this sort of old soul passion for music. And I have been obsessed with Myah Carey, again, child of the 90s, since I was a kid. I just remember, being a kid listening to Emotions and Dream Lover and Fantasy and all that. And so her Butterfly album was a seminal album for me. I was only like, I think 8 or 9 when it came out, but I also, No Ordinary Love is really inspired. So we have a pop R&B star and a baseball player. And so if anyone is aware, at the end of the 90s, Myah Carey left her high-powered music mogul husband, Tommy Mottola, and she had this sort of clandestine affair with none other than Derek Jeter. And so this is sort of like tabloid lore fodder. That relationship didn't last very long, but it inspired some of the best music of her career on the Butterfly album. Songs like My All and Honey and Breakdown and The Roof, which there is a chapter in No Ordinary Love that is very much inspired by the song The Roof, where Miles and Ella are in the music video and they're kissing in the rain and all of that. And so music has been so inspiring to me that and also being in Hollywood and it's kind of adjacent to that industry. I have a very close friend who works in the music industry. I'm not talented in music at all, but I'm very much an appreciator of music. And so I just really wanted to write a book that not only channeled one of my favorite artists and a lot of the many Black female artists that have inspired me throughout my life. I mentioned throughout the book, I have quotes from Nina Simone and Lauryn Hill and Tina Turner and Beyonce. I wanted this book to really be a celebration of that culture and what Black women have brought to that culture as well. And so really for me, it was just fun. I just wanted to have fun with this book, even though, as you mentioned before, there are very heavy topics. We talk about, adultery. We talk about different types of abuse within marriage and how we can overcome that and how to find love again after you've been through heartbreak. But at the same time, I think, of course, that happy ending makes it all really a soft place to land.
Yeah, absolutely. It's beautifully balanced so that the dramatic parts and the bits where Ella is going through, sometimes painful developments while going through her divorce really balances so nicely with Miles' sort of inherent sweetness in places and, the buoyancy of that part of the story. When you are drafting a book like that, where you're balancing those sort of different elements, how much of attention do you pay to that, like during the first draft, and how much is like the fine tuning in your later drafts, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I like as a writer, I'm very much, I would say with my debut, because I had so with when I think of you, their grief was a very strong element of particularly Danny's storyline. And somehow my books end up imitating my life because I was dealing with grief. I lost my mother in the process of drafting my first book. And so naturally grief became a huge part of writing the just this in the scenes. And so there were times where I was drafting it and I was feeling like, oh my gosh, this is feeling very heavy. It's just feeling very, very heavy. And so I feel like with that book, I was very cognizant of wanting to have those lighter moments, those laugh, like the moments between friends where, Kalia's getting ready for her date and Neha's on the floor, like helping her iron the wrinkles out of her dress with her flat iron, with her hair. She's like, you're going to burn me. Like those moments. And with this book, and maybe it's because it was my second book, I really felt like it was just a little bit more of a free flowing freedom. And I just kind of just drafted this very naturally. And those elements of like, and a lot of people have told me that this book feels very swoony. And so I feel like those elements of like swoon and then the elements of like the deep like kind of heartache and then the elements of levity, they kind of just came a little bit more naturally. And I don't know if that comes with this being a second book and kind of like the pacing and the tonal shifts just felt a little bit more natural to draft this time, but I didn't feel myself really having to go back and intentionally lighten up scenes. I felt like it just came a little bit more naturally.
Nice. Yeah, I imagine you must sort of like internalize those rhythms as you write and write and write.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more about Ella and about her marriage, if we can focus on, some of those sadder elements for a little bit? You've already told us who the characters are based on, but what went into shaping the dynamic? Because whenever you're dealing with a toxic relationship and a divorce, there are so many things that are like, oh, this is why I'm angry at this person. This is why this person's terrible. But you sort of also have to remember like what are the things that kept you there for so long, and that's like a source of major tension. So what went into shaping that for you?
I think for Ella, and with Elliot, she recognizes that he is a genius. He's a musical genius. I mean, he hasn't been, I think it says the top hit maker for 20 years. And they have this sort of magic in the studio together. And that's what drew them together. He was the first person to recognize that. I mean, and like we talk about in the book, how, she started at Berklee College of Music. She realized she needed to just get out there and do it. Like, don't waste 4 years in school when you could be out there just trying to do the thing that you're paying to learn how to do. So she goes to the industry. She goes on a The Voice type show, and she's on for a couple weeks, and then she sent home, and he reaches out to her and is like, "You've got it, kid," basically. And so someone who sees her, especially after, and this comes to like, whether it's grooming or not, but she's already kind of been cut off by her parents. And so she's in this very vulnerable place. And here's this person who has the talent and the chops, and everything that she admires is telling her, you have what it takes to do this thing that you've been since you were 3 years old singing Whitney Houston at the family reunion. You have what it takes. And so this person kind of wraps his arms around her. And then on top of that, there's the chemistry, right? And so it's like the perfect storm. She's young, she's impressionable. He's giving her all the things that she's thought that she's wanted. And then it's like when you get into that relationship and there's that day to day and you realize, I married this person. And even her friend Rodney is kind of like, oh my gosh, girl, what did you do? And she's like, just be happy for me, okay? But it's after that where over time you start to realize, and as you grow and you start to learn more about yourself, it's like she realizes, I was 20 when I married this guy. I didn't know what I needed. I didn't know what I wanted. And as I'm becoming a woman, I'm learning those things. And so I wanted to kind of showcase those elements of her realizing about herself, what she was too young and maybe too naive to realize when she signed essentially her life away at 20 with the prenup and the marriage license. And he, being older than her, would have known, like, I'm going to get her now when, and hopefully I can keep her. And so it is a very complex, kind of lattice of things happening. But also it's something that doesn't just happen in the music industry and in these kind of, high-powered industries. It happens in every walk of life where people are able to find themselves in these scenarios where, you turn around, you look years go by and you look around and you're like, this isn't what I want for my life anymore. And so this book is really about her being able to take her life back. Um, and so I think that's what the empowering element of it is really about.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the best romances slash rom-coms have an the outer journey of falling in love and coming together with somebody, and the inner journey of like getting ready to sort of accept that love or romance,
Yes.
like your
Yes.
own, the development of your own self-worth. And I
Right.
really love that journey for Ella. It's really like it's real and it's grounded, and that sometimes it's like really like painful and raw, but it's also like it's just very aspirational too.
Yeah, yeah. And I wanted to because I know like the conventional question is, you're just getting out of a marriage. Is it too soon to be falling for this new hot athlete? And, maybe yes, but then we have a book. So I think it's natural for her to feel like, can I trust myself? I've told someone I've loved them. I've fallen fast before. If I'm feeling this again, obviously I'm wrong. Obviously, this is too good to be true. Obviously, this is happening too fast. And so then we have to have Miles actually be the real deal this time. We have to have him show up at face value as everything that he says that he is. He has to then be that. And so I've had people ask me, what was the thought process behind Miles? And it was really just everything that Elliot was not. Miles now has to be enable in order for Ella to be able to trust herself in falling for someone. We have to not only have someone who is all of the things that Miles is, I mean, yeah, all the things that Majors is not, Elliot Majors is not, but also someone who has been through the betrayal, because Miles has been through a divorce where his wife cheated on him with a teammate. He's been through the public scrutiny of, their World Series run falling apart because of the aftermath of all of that. He's been through the humiliation, he's been through it, and he's a little bit further past it than Ella is. So he has that kind of the wisdom of the retrospect, being able to look back and say, you'll get through to the other side. It's going to hurt. You might lose yourself for a minute, but you'll find yourself too. And so that was sort of the mind frame I was in kind of creating his character arc.
Yeah, it's a perfect compliment, and it really allows her to go on that journey. When you mentioned the press and the tabloids, that did remind me, like, this is hard to go through, as you say, if you are anyone, not just a pop star. But when, the paparazzi are outside your door while you're
Oh, yeah.
going through all these horrible things and just want privacy or time to be vulnerable or alone, like that, just gosh, that makes the stakes so high too. And it's a really interesting adds an interesting flavor to their romantic tension, because there's always like the push and pull of like them being attracted to each other, but being hesitant. But then also when like any relationship move you make is gonna be like clocked by the paparazzi and put all over the front pages, that is, yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I know. It reminds me of like, I mean, and we always talk about tropes in romance, but it reminds me of like Notting Hill and the show I love that's based on Notting Hill, but Starstruck on HBO with Rose Matafeo, which is kind of like a gender flip of Notting Hill. But I love kind of, and I don't, that wasn't even like an intentional reference, but this sort of like that celebrity, like this sort of like they're real people too, like I think, in a sense, we all love that, like the voyeuristic look into one of the of recent years. One of my favorites is Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld, because we're able to kind of get that look inside of the relationship of these quote unquote famous people and see that like the feelings are very real, even though we get these perfect pictures of these very curated images of them, but they're at the end of the day they're feeling all of the things that we are too, just in extraordinary ways.
Absolutely. It's such a lovely journey, and I am so glad to talk about this book with you. I'm curious, what's going on for you now? Are you working on another book?
I am. It's not announced yet, so I can't say much, but I'm really excited about this next book. I just got to see the cover sketch of it last week, and I believe that it is scheduled to be out next summer. And so there will be another Myah Ariel book for people to read next year, and it is romance. I think that is all I can say. I'm also working on another book that I'm very excited about that is a little bit not on schedule yet, but it is a foray into a new genre for me, and I'm really really excited about that one. And so that one is kind of an incubator phase, but I'm really excited about potentially branching into a new genre. And so yeah, I'm just going to be writing like a little, I'm going to be at my desk all summer just writing. My fingers are probably going to get cramped up because I'm going to be writing so much, but yes, there's definitely more coming for me.
Well, Godspeed, happy writing. I hope it all goes beautifully, and we're going to keep our eyes out for those next books because I'm going to read, whatever's next now. So
Thank you so much. This was lovely.
thank you. Listeners, it's your turn now. Please check out No Ordinary Love. And you know what? Check out When I Think of You too while you're at it. Like you might as well get both. They are available now and they will be available when you hear this. So head to your favorite bookstore or library or website, wherever you like to go for your books. Okay, it is time to close this chapter. We'll see you next time.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.